Now, a Labor-led parliamentary inquiry into fraud in the NDIS has been released, and here is what it might mean. Basically, recommendations have been made by the people in charge of doing the recommendations to recommend to themselves that they do these recommendations that they have come up with to address errors in payments that we sometimes see and, of course, fraud. This is to address the 5 to 8% of payments where we see something, not quite right. And of course, the rorting. We've had 16 people, of course, sentenced over the last, 4 years out of 200,000 service providers. And I'm sure no one will be surprised to hear that all 12 recommendations will be supported given they gave them to themselves. Just no one mentioned the 222 recommendations from the Disability Royal Commission we've had for 3 years that we haven't really done anything about. And of course, the 130-something actions from the NDIS review that Bruce Almighty, of course, led, which covered most of what's in these 12 recommendations. The recommendations have been made by the people in charge. So, of course, this is going to be our plan. Disclaimer, I am not pro or anti any political party. And, of course, the support that I give is to anyone who starts focusing on the frontline fixes that don't need legislation change and will prevent all of the big problems that we currently see in NDIS land. We hear much about the Fusion Task Force, even though it would be expensive if we took some of the millions of dollars spent on lawyers fighting people with disability in court and spent it on licensing to call it X-Force. It would be money worth spent, I think. It seems the current policy is to think about the stuff that we do in the air above after it hits the fan with a wind advisory in effect, and continue to not do those preventative things at the front line for 200,000 less people. Because if we do the wrong thing for less people, it won't be so bad or it'll cost so much. Or it will be a problem that we can deal with and fix after the next election. So make sure you vote us back in. NDIA will support new powers to access information from providers instead of the Commission and then share with the Fusion Task Force. It is hard for me to not say Task Force X every time I hear this. This sounds a bit like something the NDIS Commission would be more in line to do, but hey, we might as well share the love. Providers are going to use the same ID as you do with the ATO, but of course we kind of put that in place already, so maybe this is to cover the bum that they already kind of wiped, but we found that by doing that, we cut off all of those participants self-managing who did not have a driver's license or a passport necessarily. And without your birth certificate handy, you cannot access that ID system. So probably great idea for providers, not fantastic for the average Australian. NDIA and Services Australia will take lead instead of the Commission for Fusion Task Force X. Now, the Commission's job is literally to do this sort of thing, isn't it? So are we getting rid of the Commission? Does anyone get the impression the Services Australia staff are not busy enough? They're going to be able to share information, of course. Probably an obvious one, but the information's bad. What are we going to do? So when we look at NDIS plans, often I'll see plans for a participant that have nothing to do with that participant, and they seem to have completely confused two participants. So what happens when the information that NDIS has doesn't match the information that the ATO or Centrelink has? Are we now going to see big problems? Of course, if you are an 8-year-old and the NDIS decides to record you as a high schooler who doesn't have a disability, are we then going to have a bit of an argy-bargy between systems? But of course, if you're one of those people like me that have had to send the same document to NDIS 12 times over the last 6 months because they keep losing them, and they don't know how to record things, well, that may be a fantastic change. We want to make sure that if someone is banned from one sector, then naturally they're banned from other sectors. Of course, I'm not sure why we need laws around that, given that it's generally public knowledge and Google is there to help. There's going to be stronger penalties coming. Having a bigger stick after wrong is already done may be good. Safeguards to prevent it in the first place, probably better than a big stick at the end. Actual checks and balances when we are doing planning meetings face-to-face, probably the best way to go. But just think about what slows you down. Seeing that police car on the side of the road and hitting the brakes, or thinking, you know what, I think I'm probably okay, but in a month's time I get a speeding ticket that I didn't realize I got. And of course it comes in the mail after I took out the entire family that I ran into whilst speeding and died in a fiery crash. I feel like the face-based at the front line strategy is the thing I would focus on. Worker registrations, they're talking about bringing in minimum qualifications. Now, we kind of have that in the award already for what people need to be able to be employed, funded and paid at a particular level. So I'm not quite sure why we need to put that into the NDIS realm of legislation, given that we already have that identified in awards, or are we going to be moving away from awards? That's an interesting one to think about. Mandatory reporting has been suggested, but of course, again, that's an honour system. So how do I know if people are mandatorily reporting that Johnny did the wrong thing if I'm not checking and actually noticing that Johnny did the wrong thing because I don't go and check? Again, honour systems are not the best policy. They are suggesting conflict of interest systems to separate plan managers and support coordinators from being providers as well. That probably makes a lot of sense. And of course, bringing in boundaries is great. Not because support coordinators are great advocates and fixers when NDIS gets it wrong, though. Is this about tightening the ropes, perhaps? But at the same time, if you've been bashed and abused by a service provider in the past, you may feel like you want to kind of roll all of those supports with one trusted provider to start with. I guess it's good to have that independence, and I certainly sort of support that. Assessments can only be done apparently now by professionals, registered allied health practitioners. So if you're an OT, then apparently you have to be an actual registered OT. Well, yes, that's how it works now. So you can't be an OT doing a functional assessment or an allied health professional unless you are an OT or an allied health professional that's a registered allied health professional. Not quite sure why we would need to spell that out, given that Medicare and the professional registration system has been in existence for a very long time. We're going to have whistleblower protections, apparently. Pretty sure that there's some sort of thing in place existing right now about whistleblowing. But again, hey, why not protect those people that do want to do the right thing and report when things are going wrong? Again, an honour system is not necessarily the best policy. We're going to have Aboriginal disability liaison officers to help them find fraud. Not quite sure what this has to do with the Task Force X's job, but I guess we have no service provider options in most regional areas of Australia. So I guess the easy way to identify rorting in remote Aboriginal communities is if, you know, someone actually did get a $200,000 plan for direct services and they managed to actually spend it. I think that's probably a red flag enough to look into it, because there are so little service providers in regional areas. I'm not sure that's the area I need to be really worrying about rorting going on.